My parents chose my sister's healing retreat over my valedictorian speech, so I exposed our family's secrets in my graduation speech. Have you ever met someone who could fill a room simply by opening their mouth, even if they weren't saying anything meaningful? That's Harper, my sister. She was the star of our family's never-ending show from the time she was born, loud, red-faced, wailing as if the world owed her something. And me? I was the understudy who never made it on stage. Not because I wasn't talented enough. Hell, I was better. But I didn't break anything. I did not cry at dinner. I didn't require assistance with every small thing. I just handled it. I finished my assignments, cleaned my own cuts, suppressed my tears, and smiled for photos, even though I was invisible in them. I used to think that if I worked hard enough and did everything correctly, someone would notice. They'd remark, "Hey Riley, thank you. You held this whole damn family together while we were busy chasing Harper around the country, fixing whatever mess she got herself into this time." That day never arrived. Instead, I received a pat on the head and a, "We're so proud of you, Em. You're just so easy." As if that was a compliment. Like being low maintenance meant I didn't require affection. Graduation was supposed to be the one time I got to shine. I worked for it, I deserved it. I remained up beyond 2 a.m., practically every night my senior year, pounding out calculus problems as Harper FaceTimed Mom from Bali to tell her how she was finally finding her center. I gave up parties, sports, and even sleep only to walk across the stage as valedictorian and hear my name announced over the loudspeaker, Riley Claire Watson. Number 1. Full scholarship, Ivy League bound. And maybe, just maybe, my parents would react the same way Harper does when she mentions starting a podcast. The call arrived 2 days before graduation. I was still in my gown when my phone rang and the word "Mom" flashed across the screen. I responded, expecting a pep talk. "It may be. We're so proud of you, honey." What I heard was her voice, airy and fluttery, as if she had just finished a glass of wine on the porch. "Hey sweetie," she said. "Listen, I wanted to talk to you about Saturday." I already knew, perhaps not in those exact words, but I felt it in my bones. The interval before disappointment. That brief moment before someone says something that will stay with you for years. "We won't be able to make it," she said, as if she were discussing a missed dentist visit. "Sam booked this yoga retreat in Sedona, and she really needs us right now. She's going through a lot." I did not say anything for a second. I just listened to the sound of her wind chimes from the other end. It felt like the cosmos was mocking me. "She needs you?" I asked, my voice as flat as a dry cracker. "She's processing some stuff. Her last retreat was canceled, and this one has this shaman she really connects with. We already paid for it, and you know how sensitive she gets when things don't go as planned." I wanted to shout. I wanted to tell her I didn't care about some barefoot man wearing a crystal necklace whispering affirmations into my sister's ears. I wanted to know if she had ever canceled anything for me. But I did not. Because that was not how it operated. Harper responded to the emergency. I was the backup generator. So I said, "Okay, cool." She paused. "Are you sure? You don't sound mad." "I'm not mad." Another falsehood. "So, what was the point?" She closed the call with a cherry. "We will FaceTime you, okay? We really love you. You are great, Em." I remained motionless for a minute after the screen went dark. I did not cry. I did not punch anything. I just sat there, holding my phone as if it were a dead fish. Then I stood up, approached my desk, and opened my laptop. I destroyed the draft speech I had written a week ago. The one with the thank yous and the "it takes a village" statements. The one in which I gave them credit. I began typing a new one. This time, the pace is slower. Sharper. With each keystroke, something inside me hardened. Not bitter, but crystal clear. They were not arriving. They went with Harper again. And I was not going to scream about it. I was determined to make sure everyone heard me regardless. Even them. Especially them. The thing about growing up with a sister like Harper is that your existence gradually becomes the silent gap between her dramatic chapters, as if you were nothing more than a commercial break during her primetime crises. You learn to live on the outskirts, just far enough to avoid casting a shadow on her limelight. I used to think it was normal. After all, every family has a golden child, correct? However, it took me years to realize that being the easy one was not a blessing. The eraser was slow. One missed birthday party, one "we'll make it up to you" at a time. My earliest memory of being replaced was not particularly tragic. Today was my 6th birthday. I had planned a little backyard celebration for a dozen students and a homemade cake that Mom promised we'd bake together. But when Harper awoke that morning with a sore throat, the entire situation changed. Mom glanced at me, her eyes filled with concern for Harper's well-being rather than mine. "We might need to cancel, sweetie," she whispered, pouring Harper ginger tea as if she were ill. We did not cancel, but she insisted that I cut the celebration short because Sam needs to rest. And I recall seeing my pals leave early with party favors that I didn't even get to dish out. It worsened as we grew older. Harper have a talent for disruption. During my junior year, I underwent minor surgery. Nothing major, just tonsillitis, outpatient. Dad said he'd take off work. Mom promised she would be there. But the night before, Harper was dumped by a guy named Austin. Or Aiden. I can't remember. And she had a complete emotional meltdown. I awoke from anesthesia to a nurse offering me juice alone. No parents. We just texted, "We'll swing by after we check on Sam." It's almost amazing how she managed to hijack events that had nothing to do with her. When I gave Kolaya my admission letter, which I had worked so hard for, she burst into tears at dinner because it reminded her that she had never been accepted to NYU and had always felt like the foolish one. She spoke it through tears, with her head bowed, like a humble martyr. The room moved to comfort her. My father actually remarked, "Let's not rub it in, Em." That moment stayed with me like a thorn I couldn't get out. You could think I disliked her, but I didn't. I pity her. I felt sorry for her because she really needed to be needed. How empty she must have felt if my joy resembled her failure. But pity has an expiration date. And mine hit the wall the moment my mother called about the yoga retreat. Something in me suddenly snapped. Not too loud. Not violent. Quiet. Cold. Focused. I didn't answer with wrath since I knew it would simply add to the story. Riley is being difficult. Riley is making it about her. Number I would give them nothing they could use to recast this as another Harper-centered epic. Instead, I maintained silence. Not the passive sort, but the weaponized one. The kind that does not beg, explain, or attempt to win. I channeled all of my rage into the one thing I could control. My words. I spent hours drafting, rewriting, deleting, and rewriting. The words had to be cutting enough to cut yet not overtly offensive. I didn't seek vengeance. I wanted the kind who grinned. The type that made you question if you were the one who misinterpreted something, even as you bled from it. By the way, graduating at the top of my class, number 13 out of everyone, did not feel as I expected. You might think you're invincible. But truthfully, it was just silent. Like the time before a storm, when everything seems too quiet. I no longer cared about the number, the medals, or even the acclaim. I just wanted one person in the audience to look up and see me. But they wouldn't be present. They'd be somewhere in the desert, breathing through their nostrils as some guy with a man bun instructed them to align their chakras. And honestly, it was fine. Because I now had no one to protect. I printed the final version of my speech late that night. It was after midnight, and the printer buzzed in the darkness, like a secret being born. I stared at the pages for a long time, reading the last paragraph repeatedly. Then I dropped the USB with the backup copy into a glass of water. What about the cloud file? Deleted. No copies. No redos. It was going to be live. Raw. Unrehearsed. I spoke it out loud. Not because anyone was listening, but because I wanted the words to exist in the air before they appeared in the room. Let's see if they finally hear me now. Graduation morning brought the kind of weather that makes you believe the cosmos is rooting for you. Clear sky, a pleasant breeze. No evidence of the chaos brewing behind the scenes of my lovely little cap and gown moment. A day when everything appears to be in order. I stood in front of the mirror, putting my honor cords over the stiff navy robe, trying to ignore the hollow ache in my stomach caused by who wouldn't be sitting in the audience. It was no longer a question. I hadn't gotten a text or a voicemail, not even a last-minute apology laden with guilt and just enough spin to make it appear as if I was the one overreacting. Instead, when I opened my phone to check the time, I noticed Harper's most recent Instagram post, which featured her legs crossed on a bright orange mat with a newborn goat resting on her lap. They were both bathed in desert sunlight as a smiling stranger took a shot that looked like it belonged on the cover of a wellness magazine. She had tagged the location as Sedona. The caption reads, "Feeling realigned. So proud of how far I've come." I did not even roll my eyes. I simply turned off the phone, placed it in my backpack and let the silence settle in. My parents were not coming. That wasn't a surprise. What surprised me was how numb I felt about it. There were no tears or fury, only a focused, acute emptiness, similar to the steady breath before a final shot. I had my speech in my folder, freshly printed, with no digital backups or second revisions. It was not a eulogy. But it could as well have been. The auditorium was full, buzzing and hectic in that joyous, end-of-an-era way that only happens when hundreds of students and their families come together to celebrate the conclusion of a shared chapter. Balloons bounced against the ceiling. Phones were lifted in all directions. Laughter resonated above the quiet hum of the school band warming up. I smiled at the few professors who waved as we lined up backstage. But my gut remained hollow. Every other graduate had someone prepared to yell their name, cry in the crowd and exclaim, "We're so proud of you, baby." I had an empty row, or two, and a goat practicing yoga 3 states away. When they finally said my name, Riley Claire Watson, valedictorian, there was a roar of clapping, polite yet strong, echoing against the gymnasium walls. I stepped onto the stage, my speech in one hand and a microphone in the other, my heels clicking slowly. I peered out over the sea of faces. Parents hold tissues. The grandparents clapped for too long. A younger sibling yawned on the first row. Every face was beaming with pride, love, hope. Except for the 2 I had spent 18 years attempting to impress. They were not in those chairs. They were synchronizing chakras in the desert. "Good afternoon," I said, speaking clearly but not loudly. "I know I'm supposed to stand up here and thank everyone who helped me get to this moment, and I will. But first, I want to talk about something nobody ever puts on the graduation checklist: loneliness." You could feel the ripple spread throughout the audience. A subtle shift occurred, as folks realized this wasn't going to be the standard cookie-cutter speech with Dr. Seuss references and promises to keep in touch indefinitely. I want to talk about what it means to do everything right every test, every assignment, every quiet decision, and still feel like you're clapping for yourself because no one else showed up. Several heads inclined. A teacher's eyes expanded. Someone stopped the recording. There are people who think being strong means being silent. That being dependable means you don't need help. That being the easy one means you'll never break. My voice did not shake. My hands didn't either. I'd like to thank everyone who taught me how to stand alone, especially those who were never there to hold me when I fell. You could have heard a pin drop. Some students applauded. A few hooted, half in disbelief, half in admiration. Mrs. is a single teacher. Henson, who had usually discreetly sneaked me sweets before tests, wiped her eye with a tissue she feigned not to have. I grinned then. Not a big phony smile, but just enough to convey, that was real. And then I strode off the platform as if I had somewhere better to be, heels resounding down the steps, the folder tucked under my arm like a sheathed weapon after battle. Backstage, nobody said much. Several pats on the back. One guy commented, "Damn, that was badass." I just nodded as if it was nothing. I sat down, got out my phone, and saw what I had been looking for. Not congratulations, but the aftermath. 3 missed calls. 2 from my mother, and 1 from Harper. A voicemail message flashed red at the top of the screen. I pressed play. Her voice sounded tense, somewhat harsh, and on the verge of shattering. "Riley, what the hell? How could you do that to us? Everyone's calling us. Everyone heard what you said. That was cruel. I don't understand why you would humiliate your family like that." She didn't apologize. She didn't ask if I was all right. They consistently used the same line. How could I do this to them? I didn't respond. I just played the message again, this time a little softer, allowing her words to resonate in the void she had left behind. When I arrived home that night, I turned out all of the lights. I skipped the customary processes, such as the shower, tea, and decompression rituals, which generally helped me shake off the day's weight. There was nothing to decompress. It had already burnt out of me on there, beneath those brilliant lights, in front of people who had finally heard what I had spent my entire life whispering into holes. I removed the robe and cords and placed them neatly folded on my desk, a mute memorial to the version of myself who once believed that hard work would be enough to earn a seat at their table. The calls arrived in waves, predictably spaced, as if they were timing themselves for maximum guilt delivery. First Mom. Then Dad. Then Harper. Then it's over again. Nobody left voicemails this time, possibly because they knew I wouldn't listen. I did not. I just let the phone vibrate across my dresser and watched the screen light up with names I had long since stopped identifying with comfort. They didn't call because they were worried. They were calling because I had interrupted the storyline. And in our family, that was the cardinal sin. Telling the truth, unfiltered, in front of strangers. I figured that was it for the night. That I could sleep in the modest silence I'd created for myself. But around 10:30, there was a knock on the door. The kind that sounds like someone wants to be let in while also letting you know they're already upset. I opened it to see Harper standing there. Full mascara application. A flawless foundation. As if she had just returned from an audition for the role of concerned sister. Her eyes were red, but not from crying. Rather, she had rubbed them raw enough to make it appear like she had cried. "Seriously," she began, before I could say anything. "What the hell was that?" I didn't respond. I just stepped aside and let her in because I knew she didn't ask for permission. She came for her performance. She walked the living room, arms swinging in that dramatic way she liked to show people how overwhelmed she was. "You have embarrassed us. Do you have any idea how you sounded up there? People are sending me texts. Our elderly neighbor forwarded me a tape. Riley. Here's a clip." Nonetheless, I said nothing. Silence. I'd learnt that it rattles her more than yelling. She turned on me, her voice rising. "You made us look like monsters. We were simply trying to help. I needed the retreat. I've been coping with so much. And you made it all about yourself." That's when I laughed. Quiet. Not bitter. Just exhausted. The kind of laugh that lives in your throat when you realize the individual across from you is not just selfish, but also delusional. "You made my graduation about your goat yoga," I remarked, each word as deliberate and precise as a scalpel. "I gave one speech. One. And now suddenly, I'm the villain." Before she could react, the front door opened again, and there they were. Mom and Dad, as if she had summoned them via text. "Sweetheart," Mom murmured, already approaching me with her hands raised, like if she were entering a hostage negotiation. "We didn't want it to be like this. We just thought supporting Sam's healing." "Stop," I shouted, raising a hand. "Don't say healing journey one more time unless you want to hear what I really think about your guru-fueled parenting." Dad appeared to want to speak, but Mom jumped in again. As usual. "You don't understand what she's been through." "No," I replied, looking towards Harper. "I understand perfectly. You've all made sure of that. Every missed game, every ignored honor, every time I needed you and you were too busy picking up her pieces. I understand exactly who matters." "You're being unfair," Dad finally said. "We tried to be there for both of you." "No," I said, my voice harsher. "You tried to make me your emotional insurance policy while you spent 20 years funding her identity crisis." Harper's mouth dropped open, but nothing came out. For once. "Your healing journey is built on my silence," I remarked, locking gazes with her. "And I'm done sponsoring it." The room went silent. Not the stillness of folks who have recently learnt something new. The silence of those who recognized they couldn't make this moment into anything other than what it was. I grabbed the remote and switched off the lamp next the couch, leaving the room in comfortable darkness. They all stood there awkwardly, still waiting for the version of me they knew. The one who would give in, smooth things over and apologize for telling too much truth. "I'm cutting contact," I responded simply. "Not forever. Just until you learn how to treat me like a daughter and not a background character in Sam's reality show." My mother was stunned, not by remorse or humiliation, but by the difficulty of being told no for the first time by a child who had never asked for anything. Dad gazed at her, then at me, and back again, as if he were waiting for a script. I grabbed my keys and approached the door. "You're leaving?" Harper questioned, her voice breaking. I paused in mid-step, turned just enough to catch their gaze, and said the one thing I knew would haunt them for longer than any speech or voicemail could. "If you ever wonder why I didn't invite you to my wedding, you can play this moment back." The next morning dawned with an unearned silence, as if the universe had gone still, not out of peace, but because it was waiting for someone to decide what would happen next. I had not slept well. Not out of guilt. I was at peace with what I said, but because silence has a way of reverberating after years of swallowing everything you wanted to scream. I awoke without the need to scroll through the aftermath. There was no interest about who texted what or which distant family member called my name bold, selfish, or both. I threw on a hoodie, put on my shoes, and headed out for coffee, not out of habit, but out of necessity. Some days, all you need is the smell of something scorched and bitter in your palms to remember you're still alive. The air was cool, but not freezing, with that early morning calm that makes even the city appear too drowsy to be rude. I rounded the corner of my apartment building with keys still dangling in one hand. And there she was, sitting on the curb like a discarded marionette. At first I didn't recognize her. There's no yoga gear. There are no beautifully ripped sweatshirts or crystal necklaces. She wore no flowy pants or groomed hair, and her easy wave came organically every morning, she stated. She was dressed in simple jeans and a stretched-out college t-shirt that she had not earned. Her feet were bare against the concrete, and if she had bothered to put on makeup, it was gone. Harper appeared to have paused. Her life in the middle of a performance, and the mask had no time to catch up. She did not notice me right away. She was stooped over, arms wrapped about her knees, and her head sunk so low that it appeared she may collapse into herself and vanish completely. Then I heard it. Not a whimper, not a sniffle, but genuine sobbing. The kind that does not include explanations or scripted apologies. The type that simply tear out of you when there is nothing left to hold them in. I froze. I don't know how long I remained there, undecided whether to go back inside or continue strolling past her as if we were strangers. Part of me wished to demand an explanation. Another segment I just wanted to watch. And some little sliver, the one who remembers braiding each other's hair before school when we were 10, told me to sit down. So, I did. I strolled to the curb, lowered myself next to her, and didn't say anything. I didn't ask, "What's wrong?" or, "Are you okay?" because I knew better. Some questions do not need to be asked, particularly between siblings reared in a family where silence was not a luxury, but a necessity for survival. We sat like that for what seemed like hours, yet it couldn't have been more than 10 minutes. Her crying did not slow, nor did it become louder. She was not attempting to perform sadness. She wasn't looking to gain anything from it. For once there was no one to impress. Only me, the sidewalk and the weight of the years between us. I did not touch her. I did not console her. Not because I didn't care, but because for the first time, I no longer felt responsible for her emotions. I was not going to be the one to make things better. And I believe she recognized this at some level. That could be why she didn't attempt to explain. She did not offer excuses. She did not begin outlining all the reasons she believed she deserved grace. She just wailed, like if she'd ran out of distractions. We did not glance at each other. We didn't hug. We did not say the words that people think are important. Sorry. I love you. You were correct. None of this existed in the gap between us. What lived there was heavier, older, and quieter. We were not adversaries at that time. Not rivals. Only two women were reared under a roof where appreciation was limited and emotional presence depended on who shouted the loudest. Two ladies who had learnt that quiet could protect or destroy you, depending on who controlled it. And now that stillness sat between us like a living thing, neither cruel nor kind, but simply honest. I considered everything I could say. I considered assuring her I didn't regret the speech. I considered expressing that I was tired of being the good one, the sensible one, the one who always accommodated her disorder. I considered asking if she finally understood. But I said nothing. Because perhaps she did. Perhaps she didn't. Perhaps she cried because I finally said something. Perhaps she cried because I finally stopped.